Please welcome from the cast of Warhorse, Toby Kebbell and two-time Academy Award nominee Emily Watson. Well, Emily and Toby, thanks so much for being here, and perhaps we can just start by talking about how you both came to be a part of this remarkable film.
Toby.
I was actually very lucky. It was that dream come true. I got given the role outright. I don't know why, but yeah, I was given it. I was finishing another film, actually a military film, and I got a phone call saying Steven's going to call you. And I said, Stephen who? Thinking it was my friend Stephen. And he called and asked me whether I would help him make the film. And I said I'd love to, so yeah, it was very odd.
I too got a phone call from my agent saying Steven Spielberg wants to meet you, which was, it's a very good day in your career. It's a very nice day. And we went and had tea at Claridge's, and we talked about it, and I'd seen the play, so we talked about that. And then he said, I'd like you to do this, which was very thrilling indeed.
And for both of you, talk a little bit as actors about the working relationship with Spielberg and what it is from your perspective that makes him a great filmmaker from the perspective of the actor. Obviously, you've both worked with many, many great directors, even Toby very early in your career already, Woody Allen and Oliver Stone, and Emily with Robert Altman and Lars von Trier. Is there a common trait that these people share? I'd
say of the ones that you've mentioned that I've worked with, what they all share with Steven is a complete compulsion to tell stories. And that it's like, to them it's like breathing and they have to do it. And Steven was excited to be there every day, and which is an amazing thing, to be around somebody he's awake all night worrying about the shot, you know, like a kid, and that's really thrilling.
And although he's completely open to you having ideas and very appreciative of the sacrifice you make, which is literally your job, to work the hours in your private time to figure out the character, he knows the story inside out. And that sounds very odd, but you very often work with a director who you say, so for this, I think maybe this is what I'm intending to do, and they're like, yeah, I mean, that sounds good. Is that? And you're like, do you know the story? Are we? But he knows it so well, and it sounds obvious, but he's a master craftsman. I mean, if anyone's ever seen a great blacksmith, I know that sounds such a simple skill, but if someone's a true master craftsman, Steven is that of film, as same as the others you mentioned.
And Emily, you mentioned that you had seen the play. Was there an additional process for you of research into this period, into how people lived at this time, to help you get into the space of this character?
I'd like to say I went off to the library and read 1 million books, but I didn't. We did sort of look at farm stuff and of the period, but to me it was very well written. The character was, they really nailed the vernacular of that period and of the time, and it was like, just reading it, it was like putting on a really great coat that fits really well. And I think that's, for a lot of us, it was a big part of it, was the place, the Devon. I don't know if you know Dartmoor in England. It's an incredibly bleak and beautiful part of the country, very flinty, and the wind is always howling across the moors, and that, you know, that was really the feel of it. And yeah, Toby.
I played a Geordie in the film, which is someone from Newcastle, and someone's spinning their finger at me. I don't know what that means. I played a Geordie in the film, and a Geordie's from Newcastle, so I just had to make sure that was accurate, because I have a couple of Geordie friends, and they're very tough Geordies, so I like my face, you know.
Well, I want to talk about co-star in the film who's not with us tonight, which is Joey. And especially, Toby, you have quite a harrowing scene rescuing Joey from the barbed wire along with the German soldier. Can you just give us a little bit idea logistically what it's like working on the set with a live animal, and how much of that is a live animal, how much, if any, is animatronic or a computer-generated effect?
Yeah, I mean, when when I heard it was about a horse, I'd just done a film called Prince of Persia, and I'd spent 7 months riding a horse. And when I turned up on set, Steven said, okay, so I want you to walk him down no man's land, and I want you to remember that he's a prey animal and you're a predator. And all of these guys have their tin hats over their brow. Because the very first scene was after I'd rescued him and was leading him back. He said, so I just want you to be aware. And we've set up the shot without leading him down here, without the men in it. We've let the horse down, but without the men in it. And he's very skittish of the men. So I walked out there. My own heart was pounding. You know, I just met him, Steven, you know, and he was like, hey, everyone, Toby's here. I was like, no one's going to care, but why would they care? But they did, and so my own heart was pounding, first shot, and I walked down there, and the horse was Thibelon, the very horse I'd learned to ride on in Prince of Persia, and you know, so I had my very own warhorse moment, and goofy as it sounds, it was true. So I hugged his neck. You know, he has a beautiful Spanish neck, very arching, big neck. He's a huge horse. And I hugged him, I called him Thibi. You know, I feel like he recognized me, whether he did or not. We did it in 3 takes, and he wasn't nervous at all, so, yeah. But the No Man's Land piece was mainly a fantastically puppeteered puppet. And, yeah, but there were moments where it was Thibelon again, but when he was tired, he'd stand up, so, you know. It was just a great experience for that. And
any war horse moments for you with the actual horse, Emily?
I'm actually scared of horses, but I didn't tell Stephen that. Well, I have a scene at the beginning where, you know, the stakes are very, very high, and I'm berating Peter Mullen for buying the wrong horse, and that horse does all that tipping his hat off and nibbling his shoulder. That was totally unchoreographed and completely ruined many, many takes because none of us hold it together. It was just, well, it was very funny.
I want to take just a couple questions, if there are any, before we move on to the next part of the evening. Don't be shy. Over there, Ira, yeah. The gentleman says that the end of the film reminds him very much of the end of John Ford's The Searchers, and if Steven Spielberg were here, he would ask him the question, but were you aware of that being in any way a sort of reference point for that sequence?
I've heard it referenced in a lot of the conversations that we've been having about the film. I think I would be wary of saying he was deliberately quoting it. But obviously, you can see it, it's there.
I have no idea. No idea.
Any other questions? Yes. Question, I guess, about the sort of the scale, the bigness of the production. What is that like as a performer vis-a-vis some of the, I guess, smaller, more intimate films that you do?
To me, it was quite surprising. I'm sorry, I've got a horrible, nasty old cough and it won't go away. Didn't really know what to expect, and I've worked on one or two really big movies in my time, but usually I'm in the grubby end. And you arrived on set, and there was the biggest unit I've ever seen. Went on for miles, and a lot of that was the horses and the stabling, but it really was vast. And Steven has equipment available to him that most directors, that's just sitting there all the time, that most directors sort of kill to have for half a day. Having said that, his crew particularly that crew in Britain, have worked with him many times over the years, and they don't really talk much. They just turn on a sixpence. They're incredibly swift, and he can change his mind and do something really spontaneous, and it takes a few minutes to get it all, shifted and into something else. So it's not intrusive on the acting process. And actually, I found it to be a very intimate process. It's probably very different for other sequences. I wasn't in any of the big set pieces. But he was very focused on performance. And he does a thing which I've not really encountered before, which was quite off-putting at first, which is he's a bit like a horse whisperer. And he talks to you during a take, which is actually lovely after a while when you get used to it, because he's right there in your head, sharing your imagination.
For me, it was phenomenal, just as a human being. They created no man's land on 3 acres of land, so they turned that whole thing over. So as I went over the top, I could see the German trench. I could see them in there. There were 200 men on set that day in the acting unit. So for that, to spend 14 hours a day in that, meant that when I was going home, modern cars seemed bizarre. They seemed alien. So, a lot of people are asking, has it changed your life? Is it, I don't know if it will change my career, but it certainly did change my life, working on something like that. I could never fathom what it must be like to be shot at on a battlefield, fighting for my country. But I can say quite distinctly that 14 hours was virtually enough for me.
Toby and Emily will both be joining us at dinner, so you'll be able to talk to them more there. I want to thank them again for being here tonight with Warhorse.
Thank you.
Thank you.